Good morning and Happy New Year. It's January the 1st, 2013, and the sun has finally come out and has started to shine. I thought I might show you a little bit of our garden today as a starter. This is the beginning of it. We're here at the top of our driveway. We've got a little bit of land up here with a garage on it, and then we have this really long, steep, bumpy driveway down to our house. You can just see the roof at the bottom. Let's take a walk down. Over here on the right is Pam's house. This is the remains of that lovely old beech tree that they had to take down last year. It's really massive. When they took it down, you could see the remains of the fungus that was killing it from within. Around us are the hills. That's Caradoc. Looking back up the drive, you can see the Burway Hill up there. And this is our lovely Cedar of Lebanon. As we carry on down here, we begin to see Steve's driveway. He lives next door in this direction. And we come to our gate. So this is our first view of the house and the garden. Up here we leave it pretty wild. Up until last year, this was a complete tangle, but everything was getting very leggy and scrawny and a bit of a mess, and we decided that in order to thicken the brush, we needed to cut it back first. So this poor tree got really cut back, but as you can see, it's recovering nicely, and it's got quite a bit of winter flower on it, which is absolutely lovely. It smells quite nice too. This pyracantha was cut back severely. I'm sure it's going to grow. It's got plenty of green on it. It used to grow all the way over to here, which is why this poor old viburnum is looking so scruffy. We'll cut this back gradually this year. We want to stimulate it to put some growth on at the bare side really, rather than on the green side where it's growing out over the driveway. The pyracantha came all the way to the edge of this lawn. When we first moved in, we decided to make ourselves a little spot here, and I'll show you why in a minute. But this is Frodo the dodo. Here's the view from this little seating platform. As you can see, it's one of the very few places where you can see Caradoc from the garden, and it is rather nice to sit here with a cup of tea or a glass of wine and watch the clouds go by. This bedraggled looking bed is where we grow our herbs and various other plants that are either edible or poisonous, and a few others. We've got a lovely witch hazel there. I'll show it to you in a bit more detail in a minute. This round thing here in the foreground is actually the remains of an old copper. It's very rusty, it's got lots of holes in, but it's covering the manhole cover, which is where the main sewers for this entire valley join up. pollarded lime. The bare bones of a crabapple. This is our massive pile of mulch created when we cut down a whole bunch of laurels earlier this year. Slowly we're digging into it, but it's taking a long while to get it distributed throughout the garden, because before we can put this down we have to do a lot more preparation of the ground. This is the beginnings of a little Asa, a present from Phil and Judy Turner last year. It was really pretty during the summer, and I'm hoping it'll do wonderful things this year too. And this is the Ashbrook. This is the stream that flows down the Cardingmill Valley, coming from way up on the Long Mynd. If we look up here, you can see where it comes through Steve's garden. It's not in flood right now, but it is quite high. There are times when it goes completely and it's dry. At other times, as you can see, we get a fairly good flow in here. So now we're going to go around the back of our main garage, which is this one down here in the valley, to a relatively new area. This was put in 2 years ago. What do you think of that then? That's my root. This came out of the ground when they dug the pond. At the same time as we did all of this work back here, that's the beginnings of the pond that you can see right there on the right, we also had some reinforcements done to the bank on the far side, and in fact under all of this greenery here. This area was beginning to crumble into the stream, and we decided to put gabions and rocks in to stabilize it. So this is my lovely pond. I am so happy with this pond. It's been clear for getting on for 2 years now. It's full of wildlife in the summer. Right now the only things that I've been able to see are snails and water boatmen, but I do know that there are other things in there, various bugs and baby newts, and we hope that there are some dragonfly larvae. We'll find out soon. The water for the pond comes from these roofs up here. It's really basically half of the house that's supplying the water. The rainwater comes into the gutters, flows down this drain pipe, and from there seeps into the pond through the rocks. From the pond, it flows under these paving stones, which is a sort of causeway, and into an area here which is a bit of a bog garden. As you can see right now, it's also a pond. That's because we've had so much rain in the last few weeks. We do have a few lovely things in here which you will see later in the year. From here the water drains naturally through the rocks and into the stream. This is our baobab heron. I'll show you another picture of him from another angle later. Some of the rocks that they found in the quarry were a bit too big for lining the pond and making the gabions, and they ended up drilling holes in them to make a lovely water feature. That's what that is. It's been running pretty consistently now for 18 months. And let's turn around. Sorry about the reflections on the pond, it's rather difficult to show everything at the moment. There's the heron and the stream. Now we've just had this bank trimmed and this great big Leylandii hedge has been cut. We do that in November every year. So it all looks very tidy, but by the end of the summer it's an absolute riot. And here of course is one of our many bird feeders. Continuing our walk around the garden, we find about a metre between our back wall, this is the back wall of our living room, and the stream. And that brings us into the back garden. This is where our barbecue is. And here are my golden balls, placed in a very dark spot just to brighten the place up a bit. That's a ground feeder for birds there. And here comes John. These are our main bird feeders, and he's about to fill them up, I think. Behind John you can see this massive bamboo. The birds love it because they can take shelter in there while they decide which of the feeders to go for. And this is our patio. I don't think we sat out here more than a couple of times last year, it was so wet. Let's go on while John fills the feeders, ready for a day of bird watching. We've already started our list for January. This is the entrance to my nest. A willow nest woven as a little secluded spot to sit and stay cool in the summer. So when it is hot, it's absolutely lovely in there. We have 2 flamingos guarding the entrance. Let's go on in. Yes, this is my hammock. I've actually been lying in here with badgers running around underneath us. Let's go on through. We're just going straight down the bank of the stream really. I suppose I should show you this tree. We think it's a thuja, but it could be a western red cedar, not quite sure. But it goes up and up and up and up. We reckon it's about 80 feet high. Unfortunately, it really shades our next door neighbour's garden, so he doesn't like it very much. But we love it because, of course, it's a great place for the birds to hang out. So, coming down the stream path, you see the sun really is shining, but it doesn't shine on our part of the garden right now, due to a great big north-facing bank that we have. I'll show you in a minute. This is a really ancient wisteria. Skimmia berries. Looks like the flowers are about to come, but they haven't quite made it yet. Look at the gnarled trunk here. Isn't that beautiful? Just all twisted. I don't know how old it is. That must have been the original support post. It's gorgeous. Lots of lichen. Now we're back into a bit, it's almost a secret garden really. Let's follow this little path. Now this is a bit of a work in progress really. You come down here, and this area here used to be a way through to join back up to the main pathway, but we dumped a bunch of stuff on it when we were digging out somewhere else, and the stuff was on top of a tarpaulin and it's never been moved. So I've got to move it all out, and then we can move some of that wood mulch that you saw earlier and cover that to make a very nice little sitting spot. In the meantime, we've just got a bunch of junk stashed back here. This dry stone wall is actually made of concrete. John built it. It's as solid as a rock. It was made from the remains of the pathway that Nicky dug up when he was making some new paving for us. The little creatures sitting on the top, of course, are some of my creations. I'm afraid they're a lot worse for wear now that they've been out here in the weather for a couple of years, so I'm not even going to show you them very carefully. But you see, we have this lovely, lovely red brick wall back here, and it does get very nice and warm, so I think this would make a good sitting spot if I could just clear it out. Down here between the red brick and the concrete dry stone wall is this pathway, which we've left open because this is one place where the badgers go down to the stream. Badgers can swim, so I'm sure they can get across the water. I don't think they do any fishing though, unlike their close relatives, the otters. And yeah, I'm going to retrace my path now back to the main pathway. Ow! Just hit my head on a branch. So this is a rowan tree. It's never been very good. It's a bit scrawny, but the birds do eat the berries, and they eat them very quickly. They're gone very, very quickly. Jan and I have been doing some pruning back here, hence the huge stick pile and the rather desolate looking remains of a couple of sweet smelling winter honeysuckles. I think they'll come back, at least I hope they will, because they are lovely. I'm hoping they'll come back nice and bushy and very, very fragrant. Viburnum Bontense, now I think pretty well at the end of its flowering period. This is some sort of loganberry. It fruits, but we never get any of the fruit because the birds get it first. This tree is quite interesting. It's a little sweet gum. We found it growing somewhere else and moved it here in the garden. It's one of my favourites from America, so I'm really glad to see it. Now we get our first view of our meadow. This is something we've cleared and seeded over the past 3 years, and last year it really came into its own. You'll be amazed how this looks in the summer. In the middle we have one of our cairns. We've built cairns in several places because it's a great way to get rid of the rocks we find as we're digging through. The soil here is very stony. It's easy to dig, but there are a lot of stones and rocks in it. That's the garden shed. And along the back here we have some quite nice things. That's a Photinia. There's a smoke bush here, you can't see it right now of course. Dogwood, Guelder Rose, which is of course a viburnum. And there you are looking back into that little secret area with the dry stone wall. In summer you can't see it because there's so much vegetation here. But right now of course everything's very open. And finally in this little corner of our woods we come to my naughty gnome. He's a very sweet little fellow, but he has this one bad habit, which is to flash at everybody who goes by. I think he's lovely. Right, onwards. We're just going across the meadow now. I won't waste too much time here right now because there isn't much to see. The path we're on is one carved out by badgers. We were expecting to have paths that didn't go in this direction, but the badgers decided which way they would go, so